And on this beautiful fall day, giving our introductory talk is going to be Wonil Sunim. Wonil Sunim has been involved with American Zen since the late 80s. A resident of the Providence Zen Center for several years, he also trained at Dharma Zen Center in Los Angeles and Taegosa in the Mojave Desert before moving to Korea to become a monk. He recently completed ordination at Baekdam-sa and is now a bhikkhu in the Choge order, as well as the head Dharma teacher here at the Providence Zen Center. And answering questions this morning is going to be our very own Mark O'Leary. Mark O'Leary is a senior Dharma teacher here in the Quantum School of Zen, and for the past over 12 years, he has been a volunteer in the Massachusetts Department of Corrections, helping to lead Zen practice groups and teaching a mindfulness-based curriculum called Path of Freedom. He also hosts a weekly Celtic music radio program on station WOMR in Provincetown, Massachusetts. He has been married to the lovely Nancy for 34 years. They have 3 adult children, and they recently, maybe not as recently, but they are now grandparents. This is a few years old, so I'll have to make sure to update that. So thank you both for your wonderful talks this morning, and Wonil Sunim will soon move from being behind the screens to on the screens for his introduction. So thank you all.
You're like those actors who also direct their films.
We're a little too small sometimes. Wow, is this too high? I guess. Is this too high, Chris? So this is sort of last moment because our speaker today has a cold and we don't want to transfer any germs here if we can avoid it. But I've been working on the Lotus Sutra for a series I'm doing. It's interesting times. You know, it's like with all the technology we have, the way we can communicate. So I've been using Midjourney, which is the AI generation, to make like a graphic novel style artwork, and then taking the sutras and making a really simple story out of them. And because there's nothing like that on YouTube right now. Just, you know, like the essence of the sutras. And the Lotus Sutra has been a challenge because it is so thick with flowery language. I don't know if has anybody read the Lotus Sutra. It's very hard to read. It took me a week to just weed out all the important parts. And it's strange because all the way through, the Buddha is saying, like, this is the most important teaching of my life, what I'm going to reveal right now. And if you read very carefully all the way through, he never gives any teaching. Like you're at the edge of your seat. Okay, we're going to get it now. We're going to get it. And he never says anything. So I don't know. And this is one of the important Mahayana texts. But there is, inside of all of this flowery language, there are some very interesting pieces. So one thing he said, all things are originally empty and calm, ceaselessly changing, arising and perishing in an instant. The innumerable meanings emerge from one Dharma. It is characterless. That's our teaching too. I guess we all kind of go back to this same philosophy, all Buddhist lineages, that everything comes from the source or from one place. And it's something that I kind of grappled with. I guess we all do. Like, what is the one thing? That's kind of the root of our practice, is trying to understand what it is. What is the true self? And something that occurred to me, like we have to teach in Korea, we have to teach this Polytechnic University students about Buddhism, and they're scientists and they're very interesting students, really smart from all over the world. It was a really good job. And I remember just grappling with how to get that concept over to them and looking at it. And I realized in religion, we have this tendency, or maybe just humans, to look outside the self for the source, right? That's the journey of trying to find it. Like automatically, there's you and the source, like we divide it up like that. But what you apprehend, and I think Seung-san Sunim said it in a way, he said, the founder of this lineage, he said, the deepest moment I ever had in my life was just being in the room. right? That was his most profound moment of meditation. So it's like the source, what we think of as external is actually all around us all the time. It's everything that we think or feel, everything that we see. By properties and condition, it appears thus, as a floor, or as the camera, or the wall. That's the source. It's always right in front of us. And that's the teaching too, but we can't see that by the properties and conditions, right? So in this, it takes this form because of these properties. That's all. It's always right there. And it's true, and it's solid, and it's, that's the phenomenal world. That is the one mind. It just takes whatever form. It is characterless. That's the basic teaching of Buddhism. Living beings make delusory distinctions. They undergo all kinds of suffering and harm from which they cannot escape. Seeing this, the bodhisattvas cultivate sympathy and show great kindness and compassion in the desire to extricate them from their suffering. So here we have this separation, right? Because I'm separate from the phenomenal world, or this is something outside of me. So we have the suffering. And the great teaching of, I guess it's Zen, I'm not sure if it's a Buddhist teaching, is like the very first thing that we learn in the temple rules is first get enlightenment, then save all beings. So those two things go together. That's the great vehicle, like everyone together, right? That's Mahayana teaching. But it's deceptive because those two things depend on each other. Actually, the bodhisattva compassion, if you call it that, is the doorway to enlightenment. That's the gateway. It's the journey from only me, right? Only me to all beings. It's like opening up the heart. That's compassion. That's enlightenment, accepting that, saying that it's not just me, that's all phenomenal existence is the thing. So this bodhisattva vow is a crucial part. And naturally, if you open your mind, then you want to take care of all things because you don't see that separation. Well, anyway, that's the path. It's actually very profound teaching. So in our lineage, we always talk about saving all beings. And I'm convinced, I never talked to Sungsansim about it, but I'm convinced that's why, because it's so intrinsic to enlightenment. It's the basis of it. It's that journey from a child only wanting to candy or something I want to understanding there are others and we all have to help each other. That's called the Bodhisattva Gate. So he goes on, he says, the Dharma is like water. Though it takes many different forms, such as a well or a stream or ocean, it cleanses all equally. Dharma is like this. He says, I never cease teaching about suffering, impermanence, and the Four Noble Truths, that of suffering, the cause of suffering, the elimination of suffering, and the way to that, the way to the elimination of suffering. All these teachings equally wash away the delusions of living beings. Altogether, they are the great vehicle. Now here, the great vehicle, he's talking about all the teachings that, when he started, it was a very simple style. What we know now as Theravada. That's like the basic, the old Buddhism, like the original teaching of, it's like the Eightfold Path, of just making your life correct, aligning yourself with the One, right? Not wasting energy, just being efficient with your body and your space and helping this world, right? That's Theravada. It's just aligning with the path. And the next step is Mahayana, which he began to teach later in his life. So the way that this is ordered, and Zen is a branch from the Mahayana. It's an esoteric branch from that, where we don't use these teachings per se. You find out for yourself, right? So you have the freedom to find your own truth. But there's a logic to that because, and that's basically what he said in these teachings, is that we weren't ready for that, We have to, you have to get in you have to align yourself with the path, or start to kind of a stable practice so your mind calms down and you become aware of what that is, what the one mind is. then if you draw from that resource, then you're fine. You don't need any structure at all. But it takes a while to get down to that. And there's so many distractions in our world today. So that's sort of my job, is to just go deeply into this and communicate that back, because people don't have time to do it. So I think, yeah, it's a good job. That's why I'm working on these videos too. I'm going to start doing a vlog. I was just in New York doing like some street photography for a friend in Canada. She wants to do a zine, like online, about the creative process, some kind of magazine. And so I wrote an essay and just spent the whole day taking photographs on the street and tried to make some kind of illustrated video. And I realized that's a very good way to communicate. Just talking to the camera with, some kind of prose, something poetic about your experiences, something beautiful. It's really, it's a really good medium to do that, because people don't read anymore. So I've been struggling with that as a writer. Like, how do you communicate these deep things? Because the really important communication we have is all in writing, like a science paper. You can't produce that kind of depth anywhere else. So anyway, that's my new adventure right now, is trying to work on that. And that series that I'm working on these sutras will be maybe another month. I'm going to get 4 of them done. And then I'll start to release those. So next he says, a Buddha is born into a world filled with suffering, old age, disease, and death, to save beings from the flames of desire and attachment. People engrossed in worldly pleasures fail to seek liberation and continue to suffer. They face pain in life and the afterlife, whether as animals, hungry spirits, or even in heaven. Despite this, they remain unaware and attached to fleeting joys. Don't be content with the crude pleasures of the world. They will burn you. Escape the worlds of desire, form, and the formless, to seek the true vehicles, the teachings of the disciple, those who attain liberation on their own, and the Buddha. That's like our Sangha is like what they say, disciple. Like we learn from each other, and also from people that naturally have some enlightenment on their own, like wise people in our life, and the teachers. By embracing these teachings, people free themselves from attachments and find peace in the wisdom of the Buddha, enjoying boundless peace and comfort. So to me, this is kind of like this image. This is something I struggled with for many years, of Jesus on the cross, because I was raised as a Christian. And there's a lot of teaching there, but I never understood why we have this symbol of this man being tortured as something to connect to our spiritual selves, right? It kind of bothered me. And that's something also I resolved in Korea. And it might not really be what it is, but that, to me, that's the teaching, the kongan of that, like the puzzle of that symbol. If I look at that, I see that as you have to sacrifice or overcome the self in order to attain the true self, or the kingdom of heaven, in that example. Like that means, you let go of this ego, you let go of the self. And it is a very difficult thing to do. That's why we have all this support and we practice together to more and more develop the strength, or what we call a strong center, and let go of that. That's what the Buddha is, somebody that was able to awaken or let go of that and to find the true self. It's kind of like an equal trade. It's up to you how far you go into that. And that's how you find peace. It's really a wonderful path to undergo. That's the journey that we all do. And basically that's what it is. All of our practice is so you can loosen up and let go of all of your junk software and all of the stuff you collected, just put it down. Even 5 minutes. Try that. If you just sit on your own, you have some time, maybe you have some trouble sleeping, or just, you got a stressful day, give yourself 5 minutes and don't have any responsibility at all, any worry. It's like going to a spa. Just put everything down and just sit. Just let yourself rest for 5 minutes. And that's how you get to that space. You can kind of carry that peace with you once you find it. It just takes a little work. And the more you work on it, the more that you have access to that. And I've seen great Zen masters that are just in that space so deeply, they just flow through life. It's really beautiful. Anyway, there's more, but I don't want to read a bunch of the sutra today. That's enough of me, so thank you.
That's cool.
Oh,
That's a lot.
that's a lot, yeah.
There's a lot in there. That's
That's
really
a lot,
neat.
yeah.
I can't wait to see the videos. Yeah, so I guess now is the, oh, hi. I guess now is the interactive portion of the program. You get to ask me questions. Thank you for thinking I might know the answers. That bio is a little out of date. We've been married 37 years now, for one thing. And 2 granddaughters. And so one is 3 and one is 1, and they're full of beans, and they can basically have anything of mine that they want. And yeah, so I mostly, for those of you that I haven't met yet, I practice at Cambridge Zen Center. I divide my time between suburban Boston and Cape Cod. And I drove over here from the Cape today. And yeah, and I do the radio show thing, that's true. I'll be doing that this afternoon, 4 to 6 p.m. on WOMR.org. Point your internet-capable device to that, and you can hear the finest Celtic music on the radio in New England today. And so does anybody have a question, anything kind of burning in your back pocket there that you want to bring out? And I don't have like a lot of cool Zen stories like a lot of the people who sit up here. My life has not been that interesting. I also have practiced as a Christian growing up. I grew up Catholic. I had a brief dalliance with evangelical Christianity for a while. That made me real popular at home. And converted to Judaism in my 30s and lived as a religious Jew for about 13, 14 years, I guess till bar mitzvah age. And then I'd had enough of that. Well, actually, I should make it clear. What I did was I kind of lost the God thing. And there's a long story behind that. But my Jewishness is very, the Jews taught me to meditate. I was involved in something called the Jewish Renewal Movement, and that's a really cool thing. If you're Jewish, if you're interested in exploring that, they have a strong meditative practice. It's somewhat related to Hasidic Judaism, but it's more the mystical side of it, and it's very egalitarian, and there's some really wonderful teachers coming out of that. And I haven't been involved in that in a long time. But once the God thing kind of went away from me, I said, I still want to do the meditation. What do I do? And so I started Sangha shopping. I sat with some Tibetan groups for a little while and some Theravadan groups. Theravadan practice, by the way, is very similar to Jewish renewal meditation practice. I used to kid some of the rabbis involved in that by saying they were just dressing up the Buddha in talis and tefillin. They didn't like that very much. But and I, at one point, I took the Cambridge Adult Education Intro to Zen class, which at that time used to meet at the Cambridge Zen Center. For about 6 weeks or whatever it was, and it was a really nice sort of introduction to our practice. And I was familiar enough with meditation at that point. It wasn't really new to me, but I started to. I heard in the other room, I could hear them doing Kwan chanting. And at one point they took us in to hear it, and we could participate if we wanted to. And I didn't really know what it was about at the time. I've since learned a little more about it, but the phrase Kwan really stayed with me. And I used to sit at home, and I would just, sometimes when my mind was all over the place, I would just chant that name over and over again. And it was really cool. It just kind of stuck with me. And even though I spent like another year trying different practices and sitting with different groups, at one point I said, it's time to dig down deep. I have to stop digging little holes everywhere and just find one place and go. And I said, I'll go back to that place in Cambridge. And I did that, and I never left. And now I'm sitting here in these long robes, and y'all think I know something. And I don't. Hi, what's your name?
Oh, sir, can you use the mic up there?
It's not really an important question.
Oh, yes, it is.
Listen, but there are no unimportant questions. There are no dumb questions. Your question might help him or her or me.
All right. My question is, you mentioned kind of the Celtic music, and I was wondering if you had any connection with Buddhism and the Celtic music.
Very strong, very strong. Yeah. There's a wonderful writer named John O'Donohue who wrote a book called Anam Cara. He was a poet, John O'Donohue. He's dead now, but he was a poet, but he was a very spiritual poet. I don't like the word spiritual, but he was, and mystical, I would say. I don't particularly care for characterizing what we do as spiritual. I think that's just another way of trying to make it special, which it's not. But I find that the best Zen practice is a lot like the best Celtic music, which is it's very gritty, and it's not intellectual particularly, but there's a lot of, there are techniques, of course, to both the music and our practice. But ultimately it has to hit you right in the gut. It's not something that, we've got lots of books about the Dharma, and we've got the sutras, and they're very important. But ultimately, like everything else, it's empty. And when I listen to or try to play music, music is a great way of illustrating emptiness. Because while it's going on, it's like, oh, this is so great, it's exhilarating, and then gone. The moment has passed. Now it's a new moment. And one of our teachings is that each moment has everything it needs. So there's sound, there's music, and then there's silence, and they go together. Right? You can't just have straight sound. Sound is a vibration. So there's sound, silence, sound, silence, sound, silence, right? You know what a sine wave looks like? And if you don't have the silence, the sound will be meaningless. Music is like that. The practice is like that. Everything is vibrating all the time, which is kind of a silly thing to say, but it gets closest to what I'm trying to convey. That whether you're and I think any kind of art, not just Celtic music, but any kind of art, I think everyone here should be an artist. You don't have to be a good artist, but you have to create. There's a book I've been reading, sort of dipping into it. I can't remember the name of the artist that it's about, but I love the title of the book. It's called "Seeing is Forgetting the Name of the Thing One Sees." Whoever wrote that had practiced Zen, for sure. Because what that's saying is that when you really see something, thinking falls away. The name for, like I could say, okay, this is a cup, right? And it contains water. What if I don't speak English? Cup and water don't mean anything. What does mean something? Everyone understands that because I got the thinking out of the way. I got the words and speech out of the way. Right? And where am I going with this? Zen is like that. Music is like that. Every art is like that. My mother, who was a really good amateur artist, said that in her opinion, art is not so much about learning how to draw or paint or sculpt. It's about learning how to see. And you learn how to see by forgetting the name of the thing you're looking at. Because the name it's like a filter. It's telling you what it means or what it meant to somebody else. One of the things I love to talk about is language and the way language creates suffering by taking us out of the present moment. Every word you know, every expression you know how to use, you first heard somebody else say it or you read it or something. And in that context, it meant something different. And it develops a connotative meaning and a denotative meaning. The denotative meaning is what it says in the dictionary. The connotative meaning is what it means to you or what it suggests to you, right? That's thinking. So we learn those things from our past. And so every time I use any word like cup, for instance, I learned that as a single digits toddler, right? Everyone here did. And that means that if I use the word now as a 65-year-old man, some part of my brain is referring back to 1960 when my mother first taught me that word. It takes me out of the present moment and into the past. Now, that's a trivial little out of the present moment, but anything that takes me out of the here and now is going to lead to suffering, right? As long as I'm completely in the here and now, suffering is impossible, right? Because this moment has everything it needs, nothing missing, nothing left over. It's really easy to say that. It's hard to remember it. And our language constantly barrages us with things that are taking us out of the present moment. So be careful of language. That's why our practice is before words and speech. Because words and speech, necessary as they are, useful as they are, they do that. So any kind of art that brings us to the present moment, whether it's music or drawing or singing, anything that you can do, and even if you do it badly, don't worry about it. Do it anyway, because that's incredibly valuable. I think every Zen student should be an artist. I hope that got close to answering your question. I went pretty far afield with that. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Jerome.
Hi, Jerome.
And thank you for your talk, Wonil Sunim, and thank you for being here. You just mentioned suffering, and I wonder if you could talk about maybe the difference between experiencing pain and experiencing suffering?
Sure. Everyone has pain. Everyone has pain. Suffering is what happens when you don't want the pain, when you push back. Suffering is the story I tell myself about why I don't deserve this pain. Okay. Now, when we say suffering, the technical term is dukkha, right? And dukkha, suffering is not a very good translation. I think that's a commonplace at this point. It means discontent with the way things are, existential angst, something like that. So it could be anything as trivial as who ate the last chocolate chip cookie? I was saving that. To my mother has inoperable cancer, okay? Or I have inoperable cancer. Can't do anything about it. That's the key to suffering, whether it's trivial or monumental. I can't change it. If I have a headache, I'll take a couple of Tylenol and I should be fine. Okay, that's a kind of suffering, but that's an easy one. I can do something about that. But when some pain appears and I can't do anything about it and I push back, one of the things that means is I'm not absorbing what this thing came to teach me. Okay? Now I'm not ascribing intentionality to any of our suffering. I mean, everyone here is going to die at some point, right? And when my time comes, maybe I'll have a long time to contemplate it. Maybe I'll get some wasting illness and have a long time to think about why I don't deserve this. You know, well, how come my enemies don't have this? How come I got it? Or I could look at this as this is the big teaching. This is the big teaching for present moment awareness. Okay? I can sit around and say, oh, damn it, for the rest of my life, however long that is. Or I can realize that this moment too, even this, has everything it needs. Now that's a pretty advanced high-class practice to do that when you're dying of a wasting disease. That's why we start with little things. That's why we start with who ate the last chocolate chip cookie. Because if I haven't figured out how to deal with that yet, when the big bad stuff comes, you know, there was a joke someone said about, you should live every day like it's your last. Oh, okay, I'm going to go sit in the corner with a bottle of bourbon and cry. Yeah? And that's what a lot of us would do to some extent. And I really, it's so crucial to this practice because the Buddha said, I only teach two things, suffering and ending suffering. That's it. So that's what we're here to do. You have pain, I have pain. We have physical, some of us are probably having physical pain right now. Fortunately, my sciatica is not bothering me today. But we have emotional pain. We have mental pain, right? We all have it. What do we do with it? Can we use it? You have to use it. You have to use everything that comes to you. Use it. See your karma, use your karma. Not just to help yourself, but to help all beings. And when you can really do that, you can help the other beings around you a lot. Diego mentioned the prison work. The prison people, I would say prisoners, the inmates that I work with, the incarcerated people that I work with, are some of my best teachers. And some of them can barely put two words together, but they're teaching me all the time. Their suffering is helping me. The way they deal with their suffering is helping me. Some of them are just a mess, and they're never going to be anything else. But some of them, there's some tremendous wisdom there that came out of great suffering. They've learned their wisdom the hard way, beating their head against the wall, because it feels so good when you stop. And that teaches me. We've got a couple of guys in one of our groups now who want to take 10 precepts. Yeah. I mean, these are people who are never going to be here. Okay, but they want to become Dharma teachers in training. They're going to be training for the rest of their lives because they'll never be allowed to have long robes. They won't give them to them in prison. But I'm just amazed at the way some people can see the power behind their own suffering and the teaching capability of that. So, yeah, I mean, to go back to my original answer, everyone has pain. Suffering is what happens when I don't want the pain. Did I do okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That helped me.
Oh, thank you. Wow.
You have to use it. That's a really good.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Gina.
Gina, hi.
Hi. Sunim talked about the source, like everything coming from the same source, pointing back, like a oneness. And then, but you also talked about how you dropped God at some point. I'm wondering about your thoughts about the relationship between the source, the one thing. And
I'm sorry, did you say the source?
Yeah, that's the word that he used.
Okay,
like
yeah.
Oneness, or maybe I misheard, but my question is like the relationship between the oneness that he spoke about, the thing that we're all part of, and God.
Well, I'm not going to speak for Sunim, but we can direct that question to him. But my take on that is that whether we're talking about God or the source or the one, I see those as metaphorical. And metaphor is very powerful. And so I'm not bothered when people want to use God language in these practices. I just don't believe in a literal God, but I can definitely see what people call God, and I find that useful. Do you want to comment on that?
I mean, that's what Susansini would say. I mean, it's all pointing to the same thing. And he loved all different religions, and there was no restriction at all with, anybody can practice any kind, any way. It's all part of the great vehicle. But there's something about it. It's more, like chaos theory. If you take an old calculator and you run one of those formulas, that has like E equals MC squared, something like that, it has a lot of different calculations to it, to like 10 decimal points, and you do it over and over time, the iterations will be random. They won't be the same every time. And if you plot it on a graph, it forms spirals, fractals. So there's an order to chaos that you can see. There's an intentionality there that we're not able to perceive. So it's bigger than just emptiness, like everything that's appearing in our world is being driven by a tremendous force, to evolve, to improve. I mean, there's no end to that blasting into existence. It's an incredible thing. So I have to say that's God. If I had to give it a term, I would call that God. But we can't know what it is, so we only say don't know. We're just not able to perceive it. You witness it over time. You observe, the miraculous functioning, I guess. And that's why people become monastics, when you get deeply into that.
I was going to ask.
Oh.
I was going to ask why you became a monastic.
Yeah, it's just when it opens up, it's so beautiful. It's like you want to put that in the center of your life and just pursue that.
Yeah, so there's something you just said about the God thing, and I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, I don't know if I answered your question, if you want to ask more.
No, it was helpful. It was helpful.
Okay.
Both of your answers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions or comments or... here we go.
Oh, she always has a good question.
Hi, what's your name? What's your
I
name?
don't know if my name is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
I don't know if I have good questions or not, but I'm wondering about karma. Could you talk a little bit about karma? I
Yeah,
think I only have like a very layperson's concept of what it is.
me too, because I'm a layperson.
Well, like, I have like a, my name is Earl kind of concept of
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot that you can say about it. What I don't do with karma is I don't look at it like a cosmic bank account where you get merits and demerits, and at the end of your life, it decides whether you're going to be a cockroach or a king in your next life. I'm not even sure I believe in next lives. I don't believe in next lives. I'm not interested in believing things. In the unsubstantiated way that a lot of, this is why I don't think Zen should really be a religion. Please don't practice Zen as your religion. Practice Zen because you have to, not because you believe in it. So karma, I mean, everyone knows the metaphor. If you plant tomato seeds, you're going to get tomatoes. You're not going to get carrots, right? The seed thing, to extend that, Thich Nhat Hanh used to talk about this all the time. He used to say, if you water the seeds of anger in yourself, anger is going to grow. If you water the seeds of peace in yourself, peace is going to grow. We all have both of those in ourselves. Okay, we all have the potential to do all kinds of things, and whatever we do, it's like the ruts in a road. Here's another metaphor for you. So you imagine a dirt road, and if I drive my Jeep down that dirt road enough times in different conditions, and rain and snow and mud and dry, I'm going to wear ruts in the road, and it's going to be very hard not to go in those ruts after a while. Okay, that's part of my karma, is that I've cultivated habits of mind that are going to take me in this exact path every time. It's very difficult to get out of that. And why should I get out of it? Unless, of course, I see that it's a problem. So one of the things that we do in this practice is we pay attention to things like our breath, which we never pay attention to our breath unless we're having a problem, right? If I have bronchitis or if I get COVID or something like that, suddenly I have problems breathing. But normally, the breath is literally and figuratively invisible. So we use the breath as this way to train our minds to pay attention to something we normally don't think about very much. That's really useful. Because what else do I not pay attention to very much? Well, a lot of those things are what we would call karma, or habits of mind that we've cultivated throughout our entire lives. When someone cuts me off in traffic, oh, you son of a... and I'll curse a blue streak. I didn't come out of the womb doing that. I learned that. Okay, maybe I heard my father. I don't know. Or maybe my mother. But the point is that I cultivated this habit. Okay, just because it felt good. The brain is a great learning tool. It doesn't care if it learns good stuff or bad stuff. It just wants to absorb. So when I get a good feeling from cussing out that stupid driver who didn't signal his lane change 10 feet off my bumper, oh, that felt good. So the next time it's going to be that much easier for me to do it again. And again and again. And this is watering those seeds of anger and irritation and this knee-jerk response, so I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's a habit. Who here can drive a stick shift? First, yeah, that's great. You guys are old. So
All the old timers.
the first time you drove a stick shift, you put it into gear, you let out the clutch, and what did you do? Stall. Everyone stalls. First time, probably second time. Eventually, you develop the touch where you can just let it out easy enough. And you don't even have to give it gas if you really know what you're doing. But eventually, you get to where you can do it. But you had to really think about it and find that correct feeling. And today, you can roll down the window, put your arm out here and talk to your friend, smoke a cigarette, and play the radio, and you can shift without even thinking about it. Second nature. You learned that. That's a kind of karma. But the mind, like I said, doesn't care if it learns a good, useful skill like driving stick shift or swearing at the guy who did the bonehead traffic maneuver. That's karma. Learning that again and again and again. Now, there's a lot more to karma. As for the spiritual bank account thing, I mean, like I say, I don't know if I am really interested in past lives or future lives. I don't know that we have them. I know no one's ever come back to report it that I could say, oh yeah, here's how we verify this. So, but the problem is, it doesn't matter. If karmic rebirth is a thing or if it's not, my job, your job as Zen students doesn't change. Okay? Still supposed to get enlightenment, save all beings. Whether you believe in enlightenment, whether you believe in reincarnation or rebirth or not, doesn't matter. Job is still the same. So that's a relief to me. But my main concern with karma is those habits of mind that I've cultivated. I don't know if I cultivated them, back when I was in Napoleon's army, or if I cultivated them back when I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania as a toddler. Does that help? You want to ask more?
I could, but it's.
Well, you may. We have the time. That's why we're here.
So I think that what I struggle with is not seeing the rut. Like, I get that, I've got these ruts that I'm like going down, right? It's the seeing of the rut, right? And so sitting on a cushion is helping me to see the rut.
So you're actually developing a second skill when you do that, right? Because when we sit on the cushion, what happens? The mind wanders away. We lose the present moment, and we catch ourselves losing the present moment. We have lots of tricks. We count our breath. We do, clear mind, don't know, these kinds of things. The idea being to make it more obvious when we lose the present moment, and then we acknowledge that and gently come back, okay? It's the gently coming back that's the practice. Right? I lose the present moment and I come back. It's like going to the gym. You do lots and lots of reps, right? You can't just do one and then you're done. Okay. No, you got to do many, many reps today, and then in another couple of days you come back. And over time, you develop these muscles. Well, you're developing a muscle. When you lose the present moment and you come back, you have got to do a lot of reps. And then you start to be able to come back much more quickly. Right? That happens if we do it consistently over time. Second, we start to notice other things that distract us. This cushion is not where I do my Zen practice. Out there is where I do my Zen practice.
So why couldn't screaming at the guy who is on your bumper and not, right? Why couldn't that be just a form of like, okay, I do this, I feel a little bit better, I can let it go, now I go on.
What about him? Or what about the next one?
Do they know that you're screaming at them?
Well, if all I do is scream with the windows rolled up, well, I might roll the window down. We might pull over and decide to duke it out. There's a lot you can escalate because you're watering the seeds, you see? And when you water the seeds, it isn't just that they stay alive, they grow.
But there's certain things that are, right? Like you see a duck, right? Like that gets upset and they flap their wings furiously. They get it out of their system and then they go back to being a duck, right? Like,
but they were a duck when they were flapping their wings too.
Right, exactly. That's my point, right? They're a duck when they're flapping their wings as well. And so maybe okay. Don't water the seed.
No. It's a really important question. And by the way, I don't think the duck can get enlightenment.
How do you know?
Well, I don't know, but that's the teaching. But you can.
The duck just is.
Yeah. A duck understands the duck's job. Or a dog.
Being who you are?
Well, being who you are, what does that mean? Who are you?
I don't know.
Well, okay, then how do you know if you're being that? You see the problem?
I gotta get out of my head.
The only way you can know if you're being who you are is if you have some idea of who you are. And whatever idea you have is wrong. That's not it. You have name and form and you have intellect and you have experience and a life of memories. None of those is who we are. We have those things. But that's what this don't know practice is about. Who are you? All those different ways you can unpack that. It comes down to don't know. You know, I think of it like, you know, those orange buckets they have at Home Depot. They sell this thing so it can be like a toolbox. It's like a little sleeve that fits over it. You can put the wrenches in there and different things. And I have a couple of these at home, and they're full of all kinds of stuff. And I can take out this. There's a hammer. Okay, there's a wrench. There's pliers. There's a screwdriver. And when does it stop being a tool bucket? The tool bucket is just my idea of it. Even when there's no tools in it, it's still my tool bucket. But when do you stop being you? If you take all those characteristics of yourself or how you think of yourself, name and experience and education, everything else, if you take all those out, what's left? That's don't know. That's you. That's the universal us. Okay? It's like, you know, Dharma used to say, when you're thinking and I'm thinking, our minds are different. But if we cut off thinking, then our minds are the same. Okay? That's where we're going with this practice. And it looks like we have to go there now. Remember, though, when you walk out the door, that's when real practice starts. So.
All right.
It's enough for me. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
So thank you both for your talks today. Just a couple of announcements. Go ahead and wind us down. First, in terms of our upcoming meditation retreats, we're going to have a one-day retreat with Zen Master Tangong on Saturday, October 5th. And our retreats are a wonderful opportunity to come really settle into your practice and really be able to give yourself that time to go into yourself, see your mind, and practice coming back. These one-day and weekend retreats are beginner-friendly, so if you've never sat a retreat before, please come. We'd love to help support you, introduce you to it, and give you an opportunity to practice, and it supports us as well. So never be shy about coming to retreats. So just to recap, we'll have a one-day retreat with Zen Master Tangong, October 5th. Then there's going to be a two-day retreat with Dennis Jito Popsinim on November 2nd through the 3rd. We do have several other retreats going on beyond that, so please check out the ads downstairs on the table when you enter, or go sign up through the newsletter, social media, all of the various things that you can do online at providencezen.org. In addition to that, our farm stand is set up outside, so when you are entering, slightly to your left, you'll see the little stand with all of our organic vegetables, and I believe we even have some pumpkins down there now, so please feel free to stop by, have some snacks, and pick up some organic vegetables for yourself. If you're new, we have practice every single day in some way, shape, or form. Our Sunday Dharma program is one of our big programs, but we also have a Wednesday night community dinner. So at 5:30, a meal is prepared for people to come, share, and eat together. And then we have our regular evening practice after that. So please feel free to come and join us on Wednesdays to experience some chanting. And we also do Kwan interviews every other Wednesday as well. Come see what that's about. All right, just a few last things. We are looking for volunteers. We have an invasive species removal, which is going to be going on October 12th. And we'll also need some volunteers for the kids' Dharma schools Sunday mornings, and some volunteers to help with our social marketing efforts. So if you want to help with social media, you can talk to Eva, who is right over here. Please raise your hand. And other things you can come speak to myself or Wonil Sunim. Last and not least, practice is always free. Electricity and fans are not. So if you would like to help support us, we do gratefully accept donations. You can donate directly online through providencezen.org at our little box near the front if you'd like to leave a check and or cash. And also consider becoming a member through the school, where a monthly donation will go to both support this Zen Center as well as the school as a whole to make this practice free and accessible and Zen Master Seung Song's teaching for everyone who comes through these doors. So thank you all so much, and see you soon.
I can't answer my own question. That's right. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these movies. I've been enjoying all this stuff.
Okay. Oh, thanks. John, you got leave them right away? Yeah. Okay, let me run down this. I'll talk to you in a second.
Okay, cool.
Let me just end this.
information.